The road to Renwick was as narrow as a whisper and flanked by gnarled trees that seemed to lean in, conspiring in silence. Clara Everhart drove slowly, her old suitcase rattling in the back of the hired car. She wasn't sure what she had expected. A picturesque countryside, perhaps, or a warm welcome, but the village she arrived in looked like a painting washed too many times. Gray stone houses stood shoulder to shoulder, their windows like half-lidded eyes watching her arrival. She stepped out, boots crunching on gravel. It smelled of rain and moss. An elderly man at the post office pointed her toward the library without asking questions, though his eyes lingered on her face longer than was polite. "Been empty near a century," he muttered. "Strange place. Best of luck." The Renwick Library stood at the edge of the village, looming like a forgotten cathedral. Vines crawled up its brickwork like old wounds. Ivy trailed the iron fence, and its peaked roof seemed to pierce the sky with disdain. Clara approached slowly, keys jingling in her coat pocket, heart pounding despite herself. Inside, the air was dry, still, heavy with the smell of paper, ash, and time. She flicked on the breaker. Some lights sputtered alive, others stayed dead. Books lined the walls in fading glory, many crumbling, their spines giving up secrets in flaking gold letters. She wandered through the corridors, her fingers trailing over shelves. A half-burned candle sat in a holder on the main desk, melted wax, cold. Clara sat down on the bench by the tall front window. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to exhale. She had come here to be alone, after all, to mend, in a place forgotten. But just as dusk fell and the library shivered into shadow, Clara heard it, soft, slow, unmistakable. Footsteps upstairs. And she was alone. She froze, heart hammering. Mice, she told herself, or the wind. But the steps had rhythm, intentional, human. She grabbed her flashlight and climbed the old spiral staircase to the second floor, dust blooming in the air like breath. The floor groaned beneath her boots. She swept the beam across shelves, chairs, portraits draped in cloth. Nothing. Yet something tugged at her, a pull, faint but insistent. She reached the back of the archives and discovered a curious shelf, deeper than the others, out of place. When she tapped it, it echoed, hollow. Her fingers brushed along the wood until she found the seam. A latch clicked. A section of the shelving slid back with a protesting shriek of wood and dust. Behind it, a dark corridor. She hesitated, then stepped inside. The narrow hallway ended in a door unlike any other in the building, smooth oak with an ornate brass handle, cold to the touch. She opened it. The room beyond was windowless and tall-ceilinged, lined with strange books, an unused hearth, and a solitary armchair before a mirror that had long since tarnished. A chill lingered in the air. Clara stepped in. The door creaked shut behind her. A floorboard creaked. She turned. No one. She shook her head and laughed softly, nervously, and turned back toward the fireplace. In the dust on the hearthstone was a single footprint. And it wasn't hers.
That night, Clara barely slept. Her small quarters at the back of the library were modest: a cot, a stove, and a kettle that hissed a reminder of the past. At midnight, as the wind picked up and trees thrashed their branches against the windows, she awoke to the sound of whispering. Soft, urgent, her name. She sat up, heart clutched tight in her throat. "Who's there?" she called. Silence. She wrapped herself in a blanket and stepped into the hallway. Moonlight from the stained glass windows pooled on the wooden floor in colors like spilled wine. The hidden door to the sealed room was still open. She moved toward it. Inside, the air was colder. The mirror glimmered faintly, though there was no light source. And in the chair sat a man. His posture was upright, hands folded, a dark coat draped over slim shoulders. His hair was jet black, brushing the collar. He looked real. Clara gasped and stepped back. He turned. His face was pale, elegant, eyes impossibly sad. "You've come," he said. Clara gripped the doorframe. "Who are you?" He stood slowly, like wind rising in old trees. "My name is Jonathan Harrow. This place has been abandoned for decades." "I know." "You're dead," he said gently. "Yes, quite thoroughly." She should have screamed, run, fainted. But something about him rooted her in place. She looked into his eyes and saw memory, grief, longing, and something else, recognition. "Why can I see you?" she whispered. "I don't know, but you opened the door."
Clara didn't sleep the next night. She sat curled in a heavy armchair in the library's main hall, books piled at her feet. By candlelight, she read every historical record she could find on the village of Renwick and its long-forgotten library. She found no mention of Jonathan Harrow, no obituary, no death records, nothing. Yet as the clock struck midnight, he appeared again. This time he stood by the tall window in the secret room, hands clasped behind his back, staring out at the fog-shrouded trees. "You used to read here," Clara said softly, stepping inside. "Didn't you?" He nodded. "It was my refuge. I was the library's last caretaker before the fire." "What fire?" "It happened in 1892. Most say it was lightning. Others—" He trailed off. Clara moved closer. "Others?" He glanced at her, eyes flickering with shadows. "Others say it was my fault." "You didn't seem the type to start fires." "I was in love with someone I shouldn't have been. She died that night." Clara felt a strange tightness in her chest. "Who was she?" "She was the daughter of a wealthy industrialist. He opposed the match. Her name was Evelyn." A silence passed between them, soft and full. Clara finally asked, "And you stayed?" Jonathan smiled faintly. "No, I died. But something of me remained. This room was where I waited for her every day. I think my soul latched on to that waiting." Clara swallowed. "And now?" "I waited for someone who could see me. I thought it would be her." He looked at her more directly now. "But it was you." Library, cataloging, dusting, repairing bindings, and her nights with Jonathan. They talked about everything: literature, music, memory. She learned he favored Keats, feared forgetting Evelyn's voice, and had been alone for so long that words often failed him. "You don't frighten me," she said one night. "I should," he replied with a sad smile. "No, you feel more real than most of the living." Outside, the wind howled. The library seemed to breathe with them. One evening, she brought a phonograph and played Debussy's Clair de Lune. Jonathan closed his eyes and let the music wash over him. His fingers twitched as if remembering how to move, how to dance. Clara stood, held out her hand. He looked at it as though it were made of stars. "You can't feel me." She stepped closer. "Then try." Tentatively, he raised his hand.
For a breathless moment their fingers met, her skin prickled with cold, his touch like fog and memory. But it held. Clara gasped. So did he. "You're changing," he whispered. "Or I am." But that same night, when Clara returned from fetching water, she found the room empty and scorch marks blooming on the floor near the hearth. A faint scent of smoke lingered. Jonathan didn't appear again for 3 days.
Clara grew frantic. She scoured every volume in the hidden room, searching for a clue. And finally, behind a false panel in one of the antique bookshelves, she found a small, leather-bound diary with initials etched in gold. E.L.H. Evelyn. Clara opened it with shaking hands. June 14th, 1892. Jonathan says we must leave. He wants to elope tonight. Father suspects everything. I'm frightened, but I've never wanted anything more. June 15th, 1892. I heard shouting in the library. Father found the letters. Jonathan tried to calm him, but there was so much rage. Then, the fire. I can still smell the smoke. Jonathan, oh God, I don't know if he... The final page was stained, torn. Clara clutched the diary to her chest. Jonathan had told her Evelyn died, but the words suggested otherwise. She returned to the secret room that night, calling softly, desperately, "Jonathan, please, I found her words." A shadow stirred in the corner. He stepped out, his expression pale and unreadable. "I failed her," he said. "I couldn't protect her. Her father locked the doors. I was trapped. I thought she died." "She didn't," Clara said gently. "She lived long enough to write this. She thought you had escaped." Jonathan staggered. His form flickered as if unraveling. "She never found you," Clara whispered. "She mourned you. She must have believed you abandoned her. She must have died with a broken heart." He sank to his knees, hands trembling, and then he looked up at Clara. She wasn't the only one who died with a broken heart.
Jonathan's sorrow lingered like fog across the library, affecting everything Clara touched. She could feel it in the temperature of the air, the way the lights flickered, the sudden stillness of the wind outside. For 2 nights, he didn't appear. When he finally did, it was in the old mirror. Clara gasped when she saw him, half-formed, like a photograph left out in the rain. She stepped closer to the frame. "Jonathan?" "I can't hold shape," he said faintly. "I'm unraveling. Something's changing, or fighting to." Clara touched the mirror's surface. It felt colder than glass had any right to be. "Is it the diary? Does knowing the truth make you disappear?" He shook his head. "No, it's you." Her brow furrowed. "Me? You brought light into this place. Your presence, it pulls at me. The longer I'm near you, the more I feel like a man again, and the more the library seems to resist." Clara blinked. "Resist? I think this place is a prison. I wasn't just bound by grief. Someone kept me here." The mirror vibrated under her fingers. "I think it's him," Jonathan whispered. "Evelyn's father?" He nodded. "The man who set the fire?" Jonathan's image faded for a moment, then returned with a flicker of pain. "I never saw him again, but I feel his presence. In the walls, in the shadows. He doesn't want me free." Clara swallowed hard, her voice a whisper. "Then we'll make you free."
Determined to uncover the truth, Clara climbed to the attic, a part of the library she'd avoided until now. The air was thick with mildew and dust, boxes stacked like tombstones. But something pulled her there, a presence, quiet and insistent. In a trunk marked Estate of Reginald L. Hargrave, she found what she hadn't expected, a series of oil portraits. One showed Evelyn, young and hauntingly beautiful, with sorrow in her eyes. Another, larger, darker, depicted a man with hard eyes and a sneer carved into his mouth, her father. Clara's skin prickled. His eyes looked out of the canvas as if seeing her. She lifted a final canvas and her breath caught. It was Jonathan, handsome, kind-eyed, wearing the same dark coat he always appeared in. The painting had been slashed down the middle. Behind the portrait she found an envelope. Inside, a letter, unsent. To Evelyn. If this reaches you, I beg you to believe I never meant to hurt you. I will wait at the library until the hour turns. If your heart is still mine, come. If not, I shall vanish like the ghost you feared I would become. It was dated June 15, 1892. Tears pricked Clara's eyes. She turned only to find the attic door swinging shut on its own. A gust of icy air knocked over a lamp. In the mirror across the room, her own reflection didn't match her posture. It smiled, cruel and cold. And then it whispered, "Leave him." Clara returned to the hidden room, shaking. Jonathan was already there, standing by the cold hearth, pale as starlight. "I saw him," she whispered. "He's still here. Evelyn's father. In the house. In the mirror. He's keeping you bound." "I know," Jonathan said quietly. "I feel him, growing stronger, the closer we become." Clara moved closer. "Then what do we do?" "I'm afraid if we try to break it, it might destroy you too." "I'm not afraid," she whispered. He looked at her then, his eyes full of pain and awe. "Clara, I don't know how to say this without sounding mad, but since you arrived, since the first moment I saw you, I haven't thought of Evelyn the same way. You—" He broke off, struggling. She reached for him, her hand finding his. This time their fingers locked. No cold, no flickering, just heat. "Say it," she murmured. "I think I've fallen in love with you," he said, voice breaking. Clara closed the distance and pressed her lips to his. For a moment, the entire library trembled. The bookshelves creaked, the air sparked, a wind rose from nowhere, howling like grief unleashed. Their kiss deepened, and the fire in the hearth roared to life, unlit. When they pulled apart, Clara could still feel his warmth, but behind them, the mirror cracked down the center. After the kiss, everything changed. Jonathan no longer flickered. He cast shadows. He could touch things, move through certain doors without effort. He could even hold a pen. Clara watched, fascinated and terrified, as he wrote his name for the first time in over a century. "Something's broken," he said, "or begun." Clara pulled out the Hargrave estate documents she'd found in the attic. "I think I know why. This isn't just some restless spirit haunting the place. Your soul was bound here, intentionally." Jonathan froze. "What do you mean?" Clara spread out the papers, old letters, land records, private journals. Reginald Hargrave wasn't just Evelyn's father. He was obsessed with legacy. His family built this town. When Evelyn defied him, it wasn't just about love. He thought you were beneath her, a stain. She pointed to a passage in an old handwritten book of symbols. He dabbled in old rites, occult bindings. He believed he could trap souls. Jonathan stared at her. "You're saying he didn't just kill me, he cursed me?" Clara nodded. "I think your soul was bound here, to keep you from ever reuniting with her or moving on." Jonathan's hands curled into fists. "And now because we love," Clara said softly. That night the library shook again, but this time the walls bled.
Clara awoke to the smell of smoke. Downstairs, the main hall was filled with haze. Shadows moved across the walls, too fast, too wrong to be natural. Jonathan was waiting near the stairs, eyes glowing faintly. "He's coming," he said. Clara gripped his arm. "We need to end this. I found something else. A ritual. A reversal." He blinked. "A what?" "A way to break the binding, to unchain your soul." Jonathan hesitated. "If we do this, what happens to me?" "I don't know." He touched her face. "Then I won't risk it." "You have to," she whispered. "I love you too much to let you suffer another century like this." From the shadows beyond, a figure stepped out. Tall, elegant, dressed in black. Reginald Hargrave, but not as a man. His eyes glowed with fire. His mouth was ash and hate. "You dare," he hissed, voice like rust and thunder. Clara stood between him and Jonathan, heart pounding. "You trapped him. You used your daughter's grief like a lock." "She betrayed her bloodline, and he loved her," Clara screamed, "and she loved him." The ghost surged forward, but Jonathan stepped into his path. For the first time, he didn't flinch. He grabbed the portrait of Reginald from the wall and hurled it into the flames. The spirit howled. Walls cracked. Books flew. But Clara began to read the reversal aloud, ancient words in Latin, drawn from Hargrave's own cursed texts. Her voice trembled, but held. Jonathan collapsed to his knees, writhing. The floor split beneath them. And then, light.
Clara awoke on the library floor. The fire was out. The books were still. The shadows were gone. She sat up with a groan. "Jonathan?" No answer. She called again, stumbling to her feet. The secret room was open. Inside, the hearth glowed gently, but no one was there. Only the diary, resting on the mantel. She opened it to a new page. "Clara, you saved me. You gave me something I never thought I would feel again. Love. Real, present, untainted love. I can feel the light now. I can see the place Evelyn went. It's beautiful. But I almost stayed for you. I don't know what waits for you in this world, but I know you'll live it well. And I will be waiting, if the veil ever thins again. With all that I was, Jonathan." Tears ran freely down her cheeks. She whispered his name once more, but this time not out of fear, just love. The wind outside picked up, and for a moment it sounded like his laughter. And then silence. Clara stood for a long time alone in the library they had restored together. Then she smiled. "Goodbye, my love." 3 weeks passed. The library was still, peaceful even. Clara went back to her usual routine, cataloging books, making tea in the back room, giving quiet tours to tourists. But she wasn't the same. She still caught herself reaching for his hand when she passed through the hidden room, still found her eyes searching the corners for the flicker of shadow that meant he was near. Her dreams were full of him, his smile, the warmth of his voice, the feel of his hand resting lightly on hers. Sometimes, when the morning light hit the upper windows just right, the mirror above the fireplace would shimmer faintly, and her breath would catch. But he didn't return, and part of her was glad. He was free. Clara kept the letter he wrote tucked into her diary. She reread it every night before bed, like a whispered prayer. She'd loved him, fully, honestly, and she knew, somehow, that he had loved her just as much. What she didn't expect, however, was the attention that followed, because something had changed in the library, and the town could feel it.
The air in the library felt lighter now. Visitors commented on it daily. Children no longer cried when they crossed the threshold. One older gentleman even claimed the smell of smoke that had lingered for years had vanished completely. Clara knew why. One afternoon, a woman in her 80s came into the library with a folded newspaper and tears in her eyes. She introduced herself as Elsa Hargrave, the great-great-grandniece of Reginald. "I read your story in the town paper," she said. "I know most people think it's nonsense, but—" She unfolded the newspaper article. "Librarian claims spirit haunted historic building." Clara cringed. She hadn't wanted publicity. "I believe you," Elsa said, gently. "My grandmother used to tell me stories about Evelyn, about a lost love. She said he died for her, that her father made it happen." Clara looked up sharply. "Did she mention a fire?" Elsa nodded. "She said Evelyn tried to save him, that she ran into the library after the flames began, but by the time they pulled her out, she was already gone. Her heart gave out." Clara felt the air thin. No one ever proved any of it, but she said Evelyn never left, that her spirit stayed behind, searching for him. Clara's voice broke. "She's gone now. They both are." Elsa gave her a small, knowing smile. "Then I think you've done something truly rare, my dear. You gave two broken hearts peace." Clara didn't know what to say. But later that night, when she sat alone in the fire-lit room, she thought she heard music playing softly from the old gramophone, though no one had touched it in decades.
Winter came early that year. The library's garden, once wild and overgrown, had bloomed unexpectedly that spring. Roses when none had been planted, ivy in perfect heart-shaped arcs. Now the snow blanketed it all in a hush of white. Clara stood at the back window with her tea, watching the flakes fall. She had begun writing again, not just reports or letters, but stories. Stories of love, longing, and spirits that lingered. Of a man who lived only in mirrors and the woman who freed him. Publishers had started calling. One evening she returned home late to find a note slipped under the library door. There was no name, just a typewritten message. "I dreamed of a man with dark hair and kind eyes. He said thank you, that he'd never forget you, that when you see a star flicker just before dawn, you'll know he's near." She pressed the note to her chest. That night, the stars were brighter than they had ever been. And just before the sun rose, one flickered and fell. She smiled through tears. Some love stories don't end. They echo.
The days were long now. The library hummed with activity. Since the article, foot traffic had doubled. Clara gave historical tours twice a week, always skimming carefully over the part about Jonathan. Some stories weren't meant to be spoken aloud. But the house whispered. The hearth still burned a little brighter when she passed. The old doors no longer stuck. And in the quietest moments, when snow gathered at the windows and dusk crept through the shutters, Clara heard faint piano music, notes Jonathan used to hum when he thought she wasn't listening. She missed him. Not with desperation, with grace. She had loved him well, and been loved well in return. But the story wasn't finished. One evening, Clara stood in the garden, now frozen in white silence. Wind stirred the bare branches. She closed her eyes and tilted her face toward the sky. Then she heard it, a whisper, not quite a voice. Clara. She turned, but no one stood behind her. The gate didn't creak, no footsteps followed. Yet in her heart she felt it. Not a haunting, a farewell. And with it, peace.
Clara was in the middle of shelving a new donation of books when she heard the front bell chime. The man who stepped in was tall, with tousled chestnut hair, a dark wool coat, and a gentle, curious gaze. He looked around like the place stirred something old in him, like déjà vu wrapped in history. Hi, he said, voice warm. I'm looking for someone who might help me with some research on the Hargrave family. Clara raised an eyebrow. You and half the town. Come in. He smiled sheepishly. Sorry, I should explain. I'm an architectural historian. I'm trying to write about how spiritual beliefs shaped local building design. Someone mentioned this place might have interesting records. She led him toward the archives. We've got plenty, but be warned, this place has a reputation. Oh? He asked, amused. Haunted? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned a page in the visitor log for him to sign. He wrote, Julian Westwood, Cambridge University, visiting fellow. Here for long? Just a month, maybe longer if the ghosts are friendly. She laughed. They tend to be, when treated with respect. There was something about him, nothing like Jonathan, yet strangely familiar. Grounded, present, gentle. And as they worked through the documents, poring over faded letters and old blueprints, something flickered. Not a ghost at this time. A spark.
It was Julian who found it. They were in the east wing, clearing out a warped floor panel, when he reached into the crack and pulled out a tiny bundle of oilcloth tied in twine. Inside was a letter, yellowed with age, written in delicate, flowing hand. Clara unfolded it with trembling fingers. To whoever finds this, if Jonathan's soul still lingers, I pray you'll show him kindness. If you're reading this, then perhaps you already have. My name was Evelyn. I loved him. I died with that love, but love doesn't end. Forgive my father. He thought he was protecting me. Tell Jonathan, tell him I waited, and I forgave him for living beyond me. And if you, reader, know what it is to love beyond death, then I hope your heart finds its echo too. E. Clara's eyes blurred. Julian touched her hand. What is it? A promise, she whispered, from one lost soul to another. She tucked the letter away. Later that evening, she placed it beside Jonathan's note, both resting now in the hollow behind the mantel, a shrine not to ghosts, but to love. And that night, as she sat by the fire, Julian beside her, sipping wine, she felt something shift, not like before, not supernatural, just real. The beginning of something new.